And welcome to the EMS Underground. I am your host, Charles McFall. Tom is out today. He has something going on that he can't be here. And so the show must go on, right? He wanted me to keep doing the show. I'm not entirely happy with exactly how my camera turned out, but I want to do the best I can with what I have. So I wanted to talk to everybody today about when you have to go it alone, because we're always taught that as EMTs, as paramedics, we always have a team behind us, right? We have backup on the other ambulance. We have our partner on this ambulance. We have the hospital. We have commanders. We have dispatch. So what happens? Yeah, I had to restart this. The first time this went on, it didn't work right. So what happens when, I'm just trying to make sure I get my chat here. So I apologize for being distracted. I just want to make sure that, oh yeah, hey, guess what? This is a new medium. Happy, 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 joy, joy, joy. So make sure you're hitting the hearts. Make sure you're hitting the likes, the shares. We need everybody to help get the word out. And I'm just going to test the comments because I am alone. I don't have a co-host here. Just have to do it all myself. All right, I can see the comments. I got everything going. Okay, so here's the deal. We're always taught that we go it alone. Now, let me tell you a little bit about myself before I really, really dive into this topic. Okay. So I was a paramedic. I went to school for EMT school in 1996. And it was a 6 or 9 month class. I think it was a 9-month class because I think I thought it was hilarious or interesting that the paramedic class ended up being 6 months. So it was shorter and got me on the street faster. But I was in Athens with Athens Tech. A lot of different things happened there. But I was a paramedic or EMT for a year and a half, and then became a paramedic. I got some experience under my belt first, got a good solid job to work in before I decided to pursue being a paramedic. Ended up doing that for about 10 years. I officially left the full-time emergency service world when my daughter was born, which is 2006. So roughly 10 years I was a paramedic. And I honestly, I would love to ask Tom this. I'd love to find out what he thinks about this. But I've always said a half-life of a paramedic is about 6 years. And if you really notice, the good, strong people come out. I'm not sure what an EMT would be because it's a little different level. I spent most of my career as a paramedic. But the half-life, and what I mean by that is that's a nuclear term, right? So nuclear bombs, radiation can last for, let's say, 30 years, but the half-life is really 15. That's when it's super dangerous. It'll kill you. That's when it's it's its strongest, is what I'm saying. And so as a paramedic, I talked to a lot of different paramedics in the field. I dealt with a lot of different things. And I figured out for myself, it's about 6 years if you really stop and observe and think about it. And there are definitely medics who stay in a lot longer. Are they at their best? I don't know. It's such a hard field sometimes. It can take a toll on you. And that's something I want to talk about here in today's episode is the toll it takes and how to deal with that and how to get help when you feel like you're alone. So I did that. I ended up going to a company called PDS Heart. I left the active ambulance field, still use my cardiology skills, and I did that job for about 7 years. And now what I do is I create media, and I talk to people, and I put on entertaining shows. You can find out more of me at charlesmcfall.com. But I do a show called The Rock God of Podcasting, and the idea there is you ask me a question, and then I tell you stories from my life and my experience for about an hour. And it's highly entertaining. Usually you'll learn something. It's a lot of fun. It's really, really cool. And in the process of it being about me and my stories and my adventures, it becomes about you. It becomes about the person who asked the question and how I answer them directly and what you get out of it. And while I definitely just aim to entertain, I also always aim to educate. My thing, and you'll hear from the story today why, my thing is always to put the human face on things, to connect people together on a human level so that they never feel alone. So they understand that everything is connected somewhere. Because you always feel like you're doing stuff alone. But today's show is going to go much like that. I put out a post. I put out a post yesterday on the EMS, Georgia Institute of EMS Facebook page. Last night, I waited a little too late to do it. But saying, hey, this is what's going on. We're going to ask questions. And I do have the live stream chatting right here. When I look down and to my right is to check to see if people are liking it and posting and commenting, that kind of thing. Now, I can't necessarily see who's watching if you're not a personal friend of mine, if you're connected through the school or through Tom. I just will take your questions, and that's fine. I'll take any questions. This is your chance. And anytime, honestly, I'm on the show and on the air, for me personally, and Tom somewhat agrees. I'm not sure if there's areas he doesn't want to go into. Oh, and that's the other thing about me, too, is Tom and I have chosen to build this show in a certain way, right? And he built the school based on some faith principles. You know, he has a religious faith that he follows. I don't. I have a whole different thing, and actually I talk about that in a show on Rock Out of Podcasting called Faith versus Religion. I believe in faith. There's a whole other thing, but I without getting too detailed in it, Tom is running the show and I'm following him. And I know not everybody in EMS has faith. Not everybody in EMS has the same faith, and there are definitely some real world situations we need to tackle. Tom understands that. If you catch me at other places, I swear like a paramedic. You know, I definitely use foul language at times. I definitely have a very strong point about things. I have a dark sense of humor, sometimes a dirty sense of humor. So be warned that if you go check out my other things, you will find that. But I wanted to say it here so you know you're not alone. So when you see the show and we're being middle ground, right? We're choosing not to say certain words that you feel like we would say, when we won't just speak plainly sometimes. It's because in his professional world, that's how he's decided to build the school. And that's, I believe, is a good way to take this show. So when I go through all this, I'm going to speak as plainly as I can, but there's definitely some things I've agreed to discuss with a kid glove, if you will, with a tact, with unoffensive language as best I can. But I always wanted people to know that we connect, that you're not alone. So let me get into my story now, and I'm watching for the chat. I'm watching for the postings to say, hey, this is what's going on. Ask a paramedic anything. Anything. For me personally, no holds barred. Ask anything. Hey, how did it affect your sex life and your marriage? I will tell you. That's a really weird question that you want to know, but I can actually tell you how doing this affected my married life and affected everything that I do. So literally, you can ask me anything. You can do it right here live on the Facebook chat while I'm telling my story. And if it's not poignant to the story, I will take it at the end and do that as well. So here we go. Now, I was working for this EMS company. And the reason I'm not mentioning which exact company I was working for is because I don't want the people involved to feel like I'm calling them out, because this story is totally about me and my experience. It involved other people, and I didn't get the help that I was looking for, but I don't hold them responsible. So that's why I'm removing the name, personally choosing to remove the name of the company and the people involved, because I don't feel like they're super relevant to the story. And that's what you're going to find today. I'm a storyteller, and that's what I like to do. So I'm trying to remember what was going on. I can't remember if this was after I told the story about this kid rock climbing, right, on one of the EMS Undergrounds. I told the story. Kid was rock climbing. Everything went by the book. He stopped rock climbing. He died mid-climb. Just died. And there was a nurse right there, and she started doing CPR. The fire truck got there within a minute and a half. They actually had an AED. The AED advised shocking. It shocked a couple times. Everything went by the book, right? Everything went as it should have. And the kid died. He stayed dead. That messed me up. And I'll tell you why. Because my compensation, everybody compensates some way in EMS. Some people just get a bitter outlook on life. Some people get a really dark sense of humor that they push onto normals, people who aren't in our field. Some people drink, maybe they do drugs, maybe they sleep around. Everybody compensates somehow for the stress in our lives. The most healthy way to do it is to find a support group, either with your coworkers or whatever, someplace you can feel safe and express yourself and get help, get education from people who've been there. Get somebody to tell you it's okay. It'll get better, or here's what's going on. In my day, that was hard to find. I'm not sure how it goes now, but it was not easy for me to get to that point when I was doing EMS. And I don't know. We all carry our own baggage too. We all get into the field for different reasons. I got into EMS at first because I thought it was an easy job. It came to me easily. most of what happens in EMS does not affect me on a stress level. I can see limbs ripped off. That happens. And that actually leads into my compensation, how I compensated for my job. It was easy to reason. Drunk people get in accidents because they're drunk, right? Bad things happen to that. Old people die because they're old, right? Their bodies wear out. Traumatic incidents kill people. Shootings happen, miscarriages happen. Sometimes I don't need to know why. Just these things happen, right? I can become isolated. Some people, their compensation is to dehumanize people. It's just a patient, which is a dummy. We go through schools, right? We go through class, and we are dealing with dummies. And they're not people. They're not living, breathing at all. They're practice dummies. And we'll tend to dehumanize people. We'll tend to be mean to them, even in my opinion, sometimes, and go, oh, they deserve this because they did that, or this and that, the other. Dehumanizing on any level is a bad thing because it takes away from you. It takes away from you as a human being. And that's always a really, really bad thing to do. And so I probably did some of that. I can't remember any of that specifically. No, I can remember exactly when I humanized myself again, rehumanized myself and humanized my patients, was the story I already told on another EMS Underground about non-emergency transports. And this lady, we had to take that dialysis every third day, which means, sometimes twice a week I had to take her. And I was angry and blah, 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 blah. I told her all that. But what happened was I wasn't even checking her vitals. I'll just be honest. I was pencil whipping it, right? I was getting on. She's breathing 18. I did, first 2 times or so, I did check vitals. But once I got a baseline, I just wrote down all this stuff. I lied on a legal document because I dehumanized her. She wasn't worth my time. She wasn't worth the effort to pay attention to her and her needs. But I told the rest of that story, right? After what happened with my grandmother, she fell, and my grandfather told great stories about the paramedics. It hit me in my heart. It hit me in my heart. And it said, everybody needs help sometimes. And when I started treating her like a patient, just talking to her like I would a regular patient, whether she could respond, just trying to help. By the time she passed away, she was a vibrant human being who interacted with us, who looked forward to seeing us every third shift. To do this, getting dialysis at a dialysis clinic is not fun, and it's not easy. And you're dying because your kidneys either aren't there or they just don't work anymore. It's grim and it's not fun, but breathing humanity back into her, treating her like a human being, recognizing her birthday, making sure she had lunch, that brought humanity back. I did that alone in the back of the truck. Nobody taught me that. In fact, the thing that was being taught by other medics was, we got to do this non-emergency transport. And that's a bad attitude, and that's a horrible thing to have go on. And so that's something I learned when I was on my own, when I'm in my own head. Because here's the thing, no matter what team you have around you, no matter what support you have, one, if you don't tap into it, if you actually have support available, people who will talk with you through things, who will indeed help you through the questions you have, who will silence the doubts and the reasons you have in your head. And I've got to, because you're going to see it, I won't tell you what I'm doing, but I have to. There we go. I could see the line of my roof behind me, and it was crooked, and it drives me crazy. So I wanted to fix that, and I'm not sure if I actually just tilted my camera too far or what. But anyway, back to the story. So you're almost always alone in your head, right? You run a call. If you don't talk to somebody who says you did the right thing and you have your doubts, those doubts can eat you up inside. They can drive you crazy. They can, plain talk here, they can drive you to kill yourself. It happens all the time. If you hear a paramedic or firefighter refer to early retirement, it's never because they were in a good company and that company bought them out because they were close to retirement age. Early retirement means suicide. And that is a very real factor in the world that we work in the paramedic medicine. Now, I'm going to say I work in this field. I'm back teaching here in this field. I'm connected through this show. I am not an active paramedic. My numbers have lapsed. But if that's what you hold against me, then Go find help somewhere else. I'm sorry. I'm actually here to entertain and educate you. I mean, that's why Tom brought me in, because of my skills in telling stories, because of my entertaining nature, and because I know how to run all this tech. And he saw the potential of what we could do. And he knows my heart. He's worked with me before. He knows I want to bring that human level to everything I do. And this is something that you don't get taught in paramedic school. You're at the beginning of your career. You only have so much time to get through school. What we're teaching you in school is here's the skills you need to go get the job. Once you get the job, you'll actually learn some human skills on how to actually react to different situations, how to keep your head on your shoulders. And that's when you start figuring out people get burned out. That's when you'll start figuring out people kill themselves over this job because they take that stress home constantly. It destroys families. I'm going to be blunt right now. Non-communication is what kills. Not choosing not to talk to your family about it. Choosing to be the strong person. I can't show weakness. That withholding of that communication will kill you. It'll burn you out. You'll leave your field. Maybe you'll stay in your field. I've known people who got burned out after 6, 7, 8 years who are still there after 20, and they're horrible. And nobody wants to work with them because they've been divorced 3 times. Maybe they even have an alcohol problem now because instead of communicating, you choose to drown it. This is not the way to go, man. This is not the way to survive in this field. It's gonna be. I'll show you. I'll show you what it did to me. I'll tell you through this story, rather, what it did to me. So, you're always in your own head. When you close your eyes at night, you deal with what you see. Everybody has their different moments. Everybody has, and you might not even know what yours is. Everybody has that marker. I worked with a female paramedic who had 2 teenage children, at least one, if not 2. And every time any kind of call happened with a kid under 18, she would do well. She would do fine. She would run the call. She was very professional, very good at her job. Her name was Angie. And I won't give her last name because I don't know if people like me talking about them. And if it's relevant, I personally don't care about certain things. I'm here to tell the truth as I perceive it. And perception is reality. Let me just tell you that here too. The way you see the world in your head, the way you feel about yourself in your head, in your soul, in your who you are, the way you see medicine and patients is exactly the reality you will live in. So I will tell the truth as I perceive it. But sometimes I do understand that my perception is not everything and it needs to change. And how I remember things aren't exactly how they happened. So in this case, her name's Angie. I just want to say she was a great mentor. She was my captain, I think it was, for a while, my supervisor on my shift, and when I first started at National EMS. But anyway, every time she ran a call that was with a person 18 or under, at the end of the call, after her paperwork was done, she would call her child, right? And they were teenagers. They had cell phones or whatever. She called them at home, however she did it. She would call them and talk with them and just say, hey, I ran a call today that had to deal with a kid. And I just want to make sure you're cool. And I want to take this opportunity to tell you I love you and blah, blah, blah. That was hers. And that was her compensation, was to vent that by not talking about the call with her own child, but basically by just releasing those emotions of this could be my kid and taking that stress off by talking to them. Communication is the key to de-stressing. And maybe more people will be watching right now if I put how to de-stress healthily in the title. I don't know. Maybe you'll watch this eventually. I'm just putting it out there. It feels like important to talk about right now. This is on my heart. This is what I want people to know about the field and about how to be a human being, period. Other people, it's the bad fire. It's the having a coworker die. It's you never know. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but I never saw what would take me out of the field. Never foresaw it at all. My compensation was to explain away everything and to be the best. To say, I will control, not influence, not affect. I will control everything that I can. But that was a false perception. You can't control anything. You can't. You can only influence. You can affect. You can try to enforce change. Somebody's having a heart attack. We do the procedures we do to stop the heart from seizing and to get it back on track. We can breathe for them, right? We can pump their heart for them. That's CPR in a nutshell. But we can't control that the body's going to kick back in. We can't control that the heart will take over or it won't. There's no control there. There's only influence. And I ran with the idea that control was everything. And Brent DeMarc says here, so is talking and possibly exercise the best way to cope? I think so. Now, anything can go too far. I have known people who became workout junkies, right? Because they went and did that, but they still weren't communicating. They still weren't talking. If, in my experience, my personal 10-year experience, if you don't talk about what is bothering you, nothing's going to get it out of you. It's going to be in your head. It's going to be in who you are. It's going to affect you. You're going to carry that burden until you choose to set it down. Now, there are people who can do that without talking to a counselor, without talking to people. There are people who can, I can kind of do that now. There's times I'll go through a fight with my wife. We've been married over 16 years, very happily. And there's been some dark times. And I'm about to tell you about one of those because it affected everything in EMS and everything that was going on with me at the time. But now, if there's something going on, I can choose mentally to hold on to it and blame her for it, or I can choose to let it go. Christians call it forgiveness, but see, I hesitate to even use that word because too many people use that word incorrectly. So I use the phrase, I'm going to let it go. I'm going to put it down. I'm going to choose to give humanity to myself. What would I like to happen to me in this situation? If I'm wrong and I'm angry and I'm dealing with other stuff and I yell at you about this thing, I would want you to go, I understand you're dealing with other stuff, and when you're ready to talk, you'll talk to me, we'll work it out. That's what I would like to happen to me. So that's what I choose to do. You can do that without actually talking to somebody about it, right? You can learn those skills. But in the biggest things, when they have a big incident, right, there's always a debriefing. We had a coworker die right after shift one morning. She was riding home after a 24-hour shift and had not gotten quite enough sleep and ended up hydroplaning in this curve and wrapping her truck around a tree and died. Well, they had a debriefing, right? They had a coming together so everybody could talk about their feelings. Any major accident, mass casualty, mass trauma, anything like that, there are debriefings. But on a smaller scale, you really need that after a lot of different calls, because sometimes you never know how a call will affect you. Sometimes you never know that it'll stick with you. You just need that ability. And for me, when I came through, I felt there was a stigma to saying I'm weak. But you're not weak. You're human. You're carrying this with you because you're a human being, and it affected you. And I don't know where I learned that was weakness. I cannot directly say this person taught me that. I don't know, because I know we did have, in the company I worked in that I'm about to talk about, we did have an ability to go and talk to somebody who was a certified, it's a counselor of types for EMS, right? It's a debrief counselor. I can't remember the exact title, but we had that there, that I could go and privately, everything stayed in the office. It didn't get reported anywhere, but I could talk to him about my feelings. And I eventually did. After the story about the kid, I eventually went and talked to him because I was just having so much trouble with it. Because, coming full circle so I can get to my new story, because what happened was my coping mechanism, right, was to explain everything works. And I'm the best. And I was one of the best for a while. I'm not saying my medicine was better than any other paramedic, but I was always on time. If you needed a shift covered, I covered it if I could. If I got the new EMTs because I was a very good teacher and people liked working with me to a point. I could be an asshole too. Sorry, Tom. I'm probably not supposed to say that. I apologize. But I could be very strong in my opinions. Let's put it that way. And so I was also hard to work with sometimes. I had a mouth on me. I still do, but the mouth I have now, I try to explain how to help people. But then I could break you down. I still could. I choose not to. I could look at you and just, I don't know. I can figure out what your weakness is, and I can just tear you down and make you feel useless. I just had that ability, and I would do it to some people, and it was wrong. Maybe it made them a better paramedic. Maybe it didn't. I'd rather now teach differently. But I lost all sense of control. I lost all sense of coping because I had a false sense of I got to keep it away from my family. My family was only a wife at the time. I did not have kids then. And I had to keep it away from my family. Why? My wife's a strong woman. She worked in the ER when I met her. She wasn't a nurse or a medic or anything. She was a registrar for the ER, but she was around it. She could handle the calls. She knew the toll it would take. I just had something in me that said, oh, I have to protect her. That's stupid. If you marry somebody, they should be your partner. And while they may or may not fully understand what you go through, they're there to help you with that burden. And just by talking it out, sometimes you'll realize it's not nearly as heavy as you thought it was. It's not nearly as serious as you thought it was. But I didn't do that. I don't know why. I just shut down. I had no coping mechanisms because I didn't drink really at the time. I drink a little more now than I did then, but mine's not. It's not a coping mechanism. I was always afraid of coping the wrong way, right? Which I did absolutely cope the wrong way. But in my mind, coping the wrong way was becoming an alcoholic. In my mind, coping the wrong way was destructive behaviors. So I avoided those at all costs. But really the destructive behavior was non-communication. So here, let me get into the heart of my story about communicating, where I learned the hard way. You have to talk things out with people. Get help. Everybody needs help sometimes. That means you. That means me. Everybody needs help sometimes. Maybe for you, it's faith-based. You go to a priest. You go to a preacher. Maybe for you, it's going to a counselor. It's talking to a trusted friend. It's talking to your wife, to your husband. It's talking to somebody, a coworker that can understand. Talk to us. That's why the email is right there on the screen. EMS Underground at georgiaemt.com. I might not be able to give you advice that is relevant specifically to your situation, but I can tell you I've been through things, and I'm here on the other side to tell you it will be okay. You can get better. It can get better. Here's some steps that I took. Maybe they will help you. Tom and I are always here for that. EMS Underground at georgiaemt.com, and that's why it's on the screen today. So I don't remember if this story took place after the kid died and I lost all sense of control, or before. I think it happened after. But what happened was there was a lot of things building up in my life. Stress of money, stress of my wife and I trying to get a new house. This was the darkest point in our marriage. It was about a year and a half in, and I was refusing to deal with the baggage that I carried. And as human beings, we carry baggage into everything. We carry it into our field of our profession of choice, which is, for those watching, a lot of people watching, that's paramedic medicine. But that's not everybody. But we carry this thing in. I kind of felt like I had to be the hero, the guy who was always right, the guy who fixed things for everybody. And that made me controlling, and it made me somebody people didn't want to be around in an everyday life as well. But my wife loved me, and she stuck that out. And we would have fights about all kind of things. But it was at this particular house that we were in our second year of marriage that this story happened. And it was, the company I worked for was a good EMS company. And they were putting on a Christmas banquet for the employees. And I don't know what my wife and I were fighting about. We started at our house, which is about 30 to 45 minutes away from the restaurant they were going to for the party. And we were going, and something got said, and it triggered my anger, and maybe she was having a bad day. We're both at fault, but we were just fighting the whole way. And it just got uglier and uglier. I remember we were fighting about her family and my family, and it's the holidays, and probably some stuff I did that I felt guilty about but didn't want to talk about. We were just fighting and driving and fighting and driving. And we get there, and I mean, I'm just furious. I'm just furious. And part of my problem too, and this is what I want to tell you about, you've got to be careful about this. You will make an image of yourself that you think other people see. And they don't. They see who you are, right? So I made this image of myself that I'm right, and I'm smart, and I'm educated and funny, and I'm up here on this plane. A little bit self-righteous, a little bit condescending. but I worked hard to back that up. And so people would say a lot of ugly words about me, but they meant he's a controlling dude and he's rude, but he's good. What are you going to do? You got to put up with I'm sorry, Tom, I don't have to say this isn't the Bible. I can say he's an ass. You got to put up with his ass hattery. But yeah, I made that word up. Ass hattery. But he's good. You'll learn a lot of great things, and he's dependable and he's strong. But they saw this negative to me that I didn't think they saw, that I refused to see about myself. So I built this stupid image up in my head of what I thought people would see me as. And then when my wife would say something that I thought was ignorant, because what she was saying was not ignorant. What she was doing was repeating attitudes of what other people said, which made me furious because that's what I did. But I hated that about myself and didn't realize that about myself. So I built this image up, and then she would come around and she would say something that was ignorant to me that other people would just dismiss. They wouldn't care. Just a bad attitude. Maybe they even agree with her, but I would just get furious in my head and I would cheer her out later on, which was not my place. It was wrong of me to do. Anyway, this is going on, and this image is being broken because she's just calling me out on all my BS. She's calling me, or fighting, so she's saying things to hurt me. I'm saying things to hurt her. And we get to the party, and we're in the parking lot, and I don't think we had talked for like a good 3 minutes at that point. It's just angry silence. And I go to get out, and she's not going to get out of the car. I'm like, aren't you coming? She's like, nope. I don't want to go anywhere with you. I don't care. I'm not doing it. Because she was right. Because we had a huge fight. There's no pretending we didn't. It's going to be weird. The fight was actively, even though we weren't talking, the fight was actively going on. This is how medicine works sometimes. When you do something in the station and you're mad at your boss, or you get in a fight with your spouse and the tones drop, you may think you're professional and you push that down, and you might push it down to a certain point, but until you deal with it, you carry it on your call. It affects your decisions. I told this story last week about my partner who was going through a divorce, and he was having a really ugly time of it, and we went on a call that was just weird, but a rational, calm human being, because I wasn't going through divorce. I wasn't having fights with people because, all right, you're just being weird. Make sure the family's cool. We can call the sheriff's deputies if you want. But, legally, he looks fine. We assessed him. He's in his right mind. We can't do anything about it. Walk away. My partner didn't want to walk away. He took a freaking 4 D-cell mag light and was going to beat the crap out of this guy until I stopped him. You carry these things with you. Everything is connected. So if you think you can't go home and talk about the calls and the stress that you have at work, you're causing more problems at home because you carry that with you. And your spouse, your family knows that you're carrying something you won't talk to them about. And it shuts them out, and they know you shut them out, and it causes more problems. Vice versa. You come to work. And I don't mean gossiping about your wife. I don't mean just, I'm struggling to find another term for what I say, complaining strongly. If we hadn't decided to keep our language a certain way on the show, I would use very strong language about it. But I don't mean complaining about your spouse irrationally and just going, she's a this and he's a that. I mean, if you're having a fight at home and you can't find somebody to trust, that you can go, man, I'm having these issues at home and I don't really need to put all these details out, or I can share the details and just talk through it, but I need to get it off my chest. I need to put it temporarily down at least and go deal with it later, because it's going to affect your calls. It's going to affect your medicine. And that's one of the quick lessons I learned right there in the middle of this fight with my wife. We pull up to the EMS Christmas party, and I get out of the truck, and she's not coming. And I start to walk across the parking lot, and I'm getting more furious because now that image of me in my head, that I'm this guy who does all this great things and is awesome sauce, and everybody looks up to me. I'm going to walk into a party without my wife, and where's your wife? And it's going to really piss me off. Tom just popped on. He goes, "What's up, bro?" Well, I'm in the middle of telling my story about what happens when you're alone in your head. and how I dealt with it, and didn't deal with it, and how it built up, and then how communication is the key to stress. Communication is the key to success in everything you do. Your relationships, your medicine, your job, everything. So I'm walking across this parking lot, and at every step I take, that image is being shattered because somebody's going to ask me, "Oh, where's Erin tonight? Where's your wife?" And I am a horrible liar. That's not true. I'm a great liar, except when I'm very pissed off, and then I just want to beat the world down with the truth. And it made me angrier and angrier. And I think I start yelling across the parking lot at the truck, which is the dumbest thing in the world to do, because now I'm really making myself look stupid. I don't look stupid. I'm being stupid. And I chose to walk back to the truck and get in and leave. And so we start fighting again on the way home. And at some point, I felt something start to shift in my brain. I mean, because we weren't fighting about anything legitimate with everything else, with everybody, each other rather. We weren't fighting about, well, you actually do this, I do that. We were fighting about her stress in her life and things that she wasn't talking about. And we were fighting about the stress in my life and the things I wasn't talking about. And really, and this is what I've learned in years and years. This isn't our second year of marriage. We've been married over 16 years now. So I've learned this over a long time of marriage with her. When she's worried about herself, she will fight. When she's worried about me, she'll fight even harder. And that's just a human thing. What she wants to say is, I'm worried about you. You're driving me crazy. Can't you let me in? I want to help you. But what she was doing is beating me down, because that's all she knew to do. That's all I knew to do back then. And I felt something shift. And I think I stopped fighting. And I was like, just stop. I just felt everything going away. I felt my world start to spin. Not a panic attack start to spin, but I just felt the shift in me. It's like, I don't know what's about to happen. I don't know what's about to happen. And maybe it was a panic attack type of deal. It was a loss of control, 100% loss of control. I was being broken at that moment, and she wouldn't stop. She kept pushing me, and I don't remember. I literally cannot remember clearly, except for 2 or 3 moments in this. It became hazy from the time we left the parking lot to when we got to the house, where I can remember some clear moments. I don't remember what we're doing. I mean, it started messing up my brain. It started screwing me up, and I sure kept fighting. And I remember that when we get to the house and we have to walk, we park behind the house in this big yard, and we kind of have to walk across the driveway, and I'm just ahead of her, and she just won't let up. She's just on me and on me, because I'd broken something in her at that point. I don't know why she kept on, but she did. And she kept on me. And I remember going from screaming loud to quiet, strained, and the sane part of me stepped back and went, dude, what the hell? You need to stop. Because, I mean, it was almost, it's not an out-of-body experience, okay? Please don't take this literally. This is the best analogy I can give you. But it was almost an out-of-body experience where part of my brain went, uh-oh, you stop. That's crazy, man. When you go from screaming and in the same breath to a strained whisper back to screaming, there's something wrong. You need to stop now. And I couldn't. I was out of control. All the stress of the job, all the stress of my life with my wife, all the financial crap, all the stuff I wouldn't talk to her about, everything was just exploding in that moment. He follows me into the house, and something, I don't know, her family and I have some issues, and we had lots of issues back then. And I have issues with my family. And so that's always a thing in our fights. It comes up to a point. And a lot lesser now that we've communicated, that we've talked to each other, that we worked things out in our marriage. But this is then. And I don't remember what was said. Something was said about her brother, and that was it. I was done. You know, we had this table that was attached to a wall in our kitchen, and I lost my mind. I lost who I was. I broke. Let me just tell you that. I broke 100%. I just started clearing things off the table, slamming things, just screaming. I don't even know what noises I was making, to be honest with you. But whatever I did, it didn't scare her like, oh, crap, he's going to hurt me. It scared her like, oh, crap, I just broke him. What did I do? And I remember I screaming so hard that ultimately found out I got basically blood explosions all around my face. I had a type of raccoon eyes, not like a concussion, but almost like really dark freckles and lots of them and a mask around my eyes because I strained so hard, I stressed so hard that I burst miniature blood vessels in my face. And that it got worse after that. At that point, I mean, I was smashing the table. I mean, I didn't break anything from what I can remember. I lost everything in that moment. And Patika, thank you, is definitely what I got. But I was face down on this table, holding my arms. And instantly, and I can look back. I knew it in the moment, but I couldn't handle it in the moment. But I can look back especially and see whatever was going on in that haze, whatever was going on in that fight. Maybe I was pushing her hard. Maybe I was hitting back. Not physically. We never physically fought ever. It's just not in me. Sometimes I'll be honest. Sometimes I want to smack her, but I understand. I don't truly. It's a stupid thought in my head. Never have done it. I had plenty of opportunities. Had plenty of rage moments, especially this one, where I broke and lost. I had no control over anything of myself. I didn't want to smash whatever was on the table. I didn't want to scream out loud. I broke. So that's my biggest moment of being out of control. I didn't lay a finger on her, which actually made me feel a lot better later on going, hey, if I was going to hit you, that would have been then. I'm glad. I'm confident in myself that I will never do that. But whatever happened instantly hit that switch in her. And it was the medicine. It was the stress of the job, everything that had been going on. And this was before the kid. I believe this was before the kid died and all that. This was a whole different thing. But I wasn't getting paid enough. I was really bad with my money. I wasn't taking care of my family. I was a failure and a loser all the way around for the things that mattered. I showed up to my job, and my job mattered more than my family, my wife, my house. It was stupid. It was stupid the way I defined my life. And I remember being on that table, and she came over to comfort me, and I screamed at her. It's just weird. I don't honestly know what it sounded like, but in my head, if you've ever seen Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and the main bad guy, they play Doc Brown in crap, I hate when I can't remember names in Back to the Future, but the main bad guy, Christopher Lloyd, he speaks with his high, really shrill voice towards the end as the cartoon, as the true bad guy. It felt like that sound was coming out of me. Just leave me alone. Don't touch me. And that scared her because she had no idea what was going on with me. And I ended up under the table. I'm not sure how I got there. I ended up under the table, had her turn the lights off, lost all sense of time. I have no idea how long any of this took after that. And it's like a bomb went off. I was done. I was calmer. I was very raw. That's why I didn't want anybody to touch me. I didn't want to hear anything. I didn't want to speak to anybody for a long time. And I was crying. I'm bawling. I'm broken. Everything about me was broken in that moment. And I in my head, and I'm saying it out loud, but I just want to know it's going to be okay. I just need to know. I have no idea what's going to happen. I need to know it's going to be okay. And she couldn't give me that. And because I never gave her the power to. I never told her what was going on in my head in my life. I never told her my fears of when I was screwing up. I didn't talk to her at all. I didn't talk to anybody. And that's my point of this whole episode. You have to talk to somebody because it could be way worse than what just happened to me. And I'm not done with that story. I want to tell you the good that came out of it. I want to tell you what I learned and how it got better. But she couldn't tell me it was going to be okay. And I said, at some point, call this person that I trusted at my job. Call them. I need to, they can tell me I'll be okay. And I remember her handing me a phone, and he was on it. I don't know what she told him had happened. I still don't quite know what her memory of it now today is, of her side of that whole story. But like I said, this company had a Christmas party, right? And we do drink as adults, and especially in the paramedic field, alcohol is fairly rampant. So the first person I called was a friend, a coworker, which I know probably hurt my wife's feelings because it was a female as well. But she was a friend to our family. At that point, we'd worked through a lot of our issues. My wife wasn't jealous anymore. But it was somebody that I thought could understand. I don't remember why she couldn't help me, but she had something going on. She couldn't talk to me, couldn't help me. So then I asked her to call this other guy at the job. And because he was a counselor, he was the one that was a certified debriefing counselor or whatever. He had been drinking. And that's all he could say to me was, I'm sorry, I can't help you. I've been drinking. I'm sorry. And again, alone, number one, because I cut my wife off. Alone, number two, because my friend couldn't be there. Alone, number three, the last thing I could think of was to call him, that he could make things okay. And he was drinking. He said he couldn't help me. To call him like the next day. Again, I don't know what my wife explained to him. To me, this is the end of my life. This is the end of everything. This is the most serious thing that could ever happen. Call him tomorrow. And I just kept feeling alone and cut off and left to my own devices. And I had nothing. And I didn't want my wife's help, because in that moment, I blamed her. In that moment, you did this. Because I guess the instant partial reality. I'm going to take a second here and talk about principle. I read a book called Zero Power, and it's out there. It's interesting. I can't remember Joe something. He's a motivational speaker. I can't think of his name. He wrote it. If you've heard of any motivational speakers, you like Tony Robbins, you would know this guy's name, I believe. Anyway, it's an interesting concept. I'm not sure if I believe everything in the book. It definitely goes left field sometimes in some of what it says, but the biggest principle I picked up from it was when we're in somebody's circle, right? I don't mean their circle of friends. I'm talking about, imagine you have a circle like in a game, okay? If you play a game, you have a circle around you, and that's the area around where you are, and you move it to walk and so on and so forth. Imagine you have that in life. And when people come in contact with you, they connect with that circle. Their circle connects with your circle for that period of time, forever. Different levels happen. But because we're part of somebody's life, we're part of their problem. Whether we cause it or not, we're part of their problem, which also means we're part of their solution. And we're part of what can help them. And understanding that about your life, that's medicine. Emergency medicine in an easy nutshell right there. What do you do in medicine? We're a part of somebody's problems because we can be a part of their solution. We get called when something goes wrong. We show up. And in that moment, in that brief moment, in the span of their lifetime, in that instant, we are a part of their solution. Did we cause the heart attack? No. Did we cause the lifelong stress and bad eating and bad habits and whatever else caused the problem that's happening tonight? No, but because we're now in that circle, we're a part of that problem, but that means we can be a part of that solution. So I want to go back to the story. So I'm under the table, and all I could do at that point was say, you did this to me, leave me alone. And that was part of the truth. She was part of the problem. She kept hitting the explode button until it exploded. But she was the solution. I needed that to happen to get rid of all the false pretenses in my head, to get rid of all the crap I bought into, all the false sense of strength, all the protection I was giving other people, all the things that made me a controlling person. I personally needed that to explode because I wasn't looking at all the other signs that were happening. I wasn't looking at getting chewed out by my boss because I said things to a patient, whether they were true or not, that I said and pissed people off. I wasn't looking at the damage I was doing by pissing off the hospital and mouthing off to them, right or not. I had an ego, I had an attitude problem. I did. I wasn't looking at the problems at home that were being caused just because I wouldn't stick to my word with my wife. We made a budget together We made a budget together. She stuck to it. I ignored it. I'm a lying, two-timing thing that I would say if I was on this show. Because of the choices. And because I wasn't paying attention to your choice of words. I like to say life brings us things. Universe brings us things. I believe in God, but I don't think God puts his hand in my life every second of every day. That's just me. You believe what you believe. You can say God brought this to me, but whatever. These steps, there are little signs. They're just like driving down the road. Just like in medicine, when you're talking to somebody who's having a medical issue and you start asking lines of questioning and boom, this flag pops up that makes you ask this line of questioning and boom, oh, you got this answer. So now you're going to come down here and ask that question. Just like in medicine where we drill down through questions and pay attention to the road signs that the body is giving us and that the patient is telling us. That drives us to the problem. Life, God, the universe, whatever you want to say, does that also. And I ignored all of the signs. So I had to hit this explosion because what I wanted was to be a good husband. What I wanted was to have a happy life. Those are the two things I wanted at my core. And I could prove it if I had time to tell another story about the darkest fight we ever had, my wife and I, and how our relationship exploded in that moment and came down to what's left. After everything's said and done, what's left. And what was left, I'll go ahead and tell you the answer. I can't tell you the story because it's too long, but I'll tell you the answer. The answer, what was left, was I love you. And while I have a very, very hard time here being with you because we both have issues, this is what we said to each other in not so many words. Out there is worse. The pain I caused, and this is something I said to her, the pain I cause you, it kills me. But the thing about the life without you is unbearable. I'd rather go through this torture of hurting you than to be without you. And she basically said the same thing. You know, what I did hurt her. She knows she hurts me. Being without me is unbearable. She can't think of that. That's what was left. And that's what we built our life on. And luckily for us, it happened in like year 2 of our marriage. And it took a while. I went to counseling. We did some marriage counseling. We got help. 2 years into our marriage, we got help. And that's where I started learning to communicate better and so on and so forth. But this moment, I'm under the table. I'm blaming her. I don't want her help. And I've hurt myself and not even giving her the power to give me help. So I had her call my best friend to do what she could do. And I had no other recourse. I was like, I need somebody who I believe understands my world to tell me it's okay. Because I am broken. I have nothing. I don't know what to do. So I had my best friend come and drive us to the hospital, which hurt my wife's feelings. Didn't mean to. And she understood it to a point. Because she could have driven me to the hospital. So I go to the hospital. We explain this. And I mean, at this point, I don't even know who I am. I mean, I'm literally just sitting there. I have no life in me. My wife says I was kind of pale. Definitely at that point, once they saw me in the light, they could say, oh, crap. I mean, I had this petechia. Yeah, petechia. But I didn't know what that was then. I had, of course, bruising on my arms where I smashed the table. That I didn't care about. The bruising on my arms. I didn't even care about the face. I didn't know about the face. I wasn't hurting. I needed somebody to tell me, you need counseling, you need medicine. Somebody to say, here's some help. That's all I needed. And I could not get it from the people I reached out to. And that's why I left out the name of the company and the people I called, because it wasn't their fault. I needed to go down the path I needed to go down. But I wanted help from them. And I don't know what would have changed if I'd gotten it. But I'm at the hospital, ultimately see the in-house shrink, because it's after hours. I have no idea what time it is, like midnight at this point. I mean, the party started at 6. So, I mean, I think it's 11, 12 o'clock at night at this point. And call my buddy who drove like over an hour to come get me to take me to the hospital, because that's the kind of friend he was. And that's the kind of wife my wife was, that she gave me my space, that she stayed close in case I needed something, that she was bawling herself. She didn't know what to do. She didn't know what was going to happen to me. She didn't know if this changed me forever, what the deal was. And it did change me forever, but in a good way. But she didn't know what would happen. Shrink asked me some questions. You want to hurt yourself? No. Do you want to hurt anybody else? No. Because, he was honest. He was like, well, I'm just after hours shrink, and why he didn't call himself a shrink, whatever, but I'm the after hours shrink. And you had, basically a temporary mental break. I mean, obviously I did. Obviously I had an emotional breakdown because you're going to need to talk to somebody. Find, if you're a church going man, find a preacher, find a counselor. We can give you some recommendations. Talk to somebody about this stuff. And we left the hospital, of course, went home, and I honestly don't remember the exact steps I took. Like, here's what I did after the next day, or so on and so forth. I started talking to my wife. I did that. I don't remember where the marriage counseling came in. It was somewhere in that time period. I definitely ended up talking to the guy I called, the counselor in my job, and talking to him, and just started working some stuff out in my head. It's saying, I can never go back there. That can never. I mean, my whole world changed in a moment. The perception of everything changed, and I realized who I thought had my back, who I thought mattered. Perception. That's what I'm stressing. I'm not putting any blame on them. It's nothing they did. The perception of what I thought mattered, of the job. Jobs come and go, man. Coworkers come and go. Things in life change. Who stays with you through that? That's what matters. My best friend was there, and my wife. And my wife and I will to this day say, well, no, we're not each other's best friends. That's ridiculous. We're married to each other. We love each other. We're on a whole different level than best friends would ever be. We think we do. And no offense to Tom or anybody else who says that. This is our life. But we say, no, best friends are here. We're here. We're at this whole other level together that nobody else can be. So that took time to build. But here's the good. I told you I wanted to give you that story, the dramatic of what happened, because that's stress. That's non-communication. That is what some version of that will happen to you as an EMT, as a paramedic, as a firefighter, if you don't learn to talk to somebody that you trust, that has your best interest in heart. Because when you make yourself vulnerable, you can be manipulated. When you need a safe space to be vulnerable, and that in a wrong situation can be used against you. Charles, you're putting fear back in me when you had me ready to talk to people. I'm telling you to be careful. I'm telling you to stop perceiving the world for what you think it is and start looking at your life. How do you do that? Simply take a piece of paper, write down a simple question. Who is in my life right now? Bam, 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 bam. Who has been there for this many years? Who has been there for this? Think about what's important in your life, the moments that were special. Who's been there for that? Think about who you told something to and they kept it to themselves. I hope it's your spouse. I hope it's your family, your safety people. I hope that it's not some female at work when you're a heterosexual man and they get you and your wife doesn't. Is that on you? And that's a whole nother show. Maybe Tom and I can deal with how you destroy your family in paramedic medicine. Tom mentioned, or it could be, crap. I'm sorry. I just lost your wife's name. And is it Barbie? Barbie, I think. Sorry, Barbara. It could be Barbara. But it could be actually daughter. It could be anybody that's Georgia Institute of EMS login here. But I hope that you put your relationship first over your job. Because here's what it should be. Your job, your family, your relationship, whatever you define that as, your dreams, your desires, your ambition, what you want to do to make the family better, to make your life better, to make everything better. Money, your income, how you earn it, your job. That's how it should be. And I stick to that. I've worked a long time to figure that out. It took a long time, and I was fortunate enough that even though in that priority list, I kept bumping my job up. I kept bumping other things up in front of my wife. My wife was third on the list for most of her marriage, for a lot of it. And she still stuck that out. But what happened was when time would come for her to go away, I would cling on to dear life and I would change. And unfortunately for her and unfortunately for our lives, there were more than one emotional explosions, not to this level that I just told, but there's more than one emotional breakdown, if you will, that said, I have to change. Now I seek change. Now I seek ways to make her life better, to make our life better. And that's a whole other story that I can do on Rock God Up Podcasting. But the good that came out of this was all my misconceptions of control destroyed, gone. All my misconceptions of who I should give my loyalty to was gone. The job, I'll be loyal to you as long as it's a mutual beneficial relationship, right? You're paying me, you're treating me well, you're meeting needs in my life. It can be just pay, but it should be validation that I do a good job, opportunity to change the world in a better way. These are mine. You got a whole list of, I'd like you to meet those. If you only meet one, well, it's great that you pay me, but as soon as somebody else starts to offer the other three and pay, I'm going to leave. But it should be mutually beneficial. They are getting the best I can give them. I fit their business model. I fit what they want to do in their lives, in their work, in their profession, And they're paying me to do that. They're meeting my needs. That's what a job should be. Always. Never, I do, and we do a little bit. And I did that. And it wasn't them asking me to. I did that. I was a guy who never said no. Never. I was a guy who you knew you could call, and if I could fill in for you, I would. I was a guy they knew they could call for an extra shift, that if I could fill in, I would. And I felt guilty about saying no. That's a horrible way to be. I was in a point of weakness. They were in a point of strength. And while the job that I'm referring to, did not abuse that, when I needed loyalty, because thinking that we were equal when we weren't, because I made myself down here and them up here, by my actions, by my thoughts, by my processes, when I thought we were equal and we needed something, they weren't there for me, because a job is not a person. A job is a collection of people who run things to their own benefit. Hopefully it's a mutual benefit for both of you. The job wasn't there for me. My ambitions, my goals, very quickly, I wanted to change the world with my voice. A long time, I thought that was going to be music. And I pursued band. I bought some stupid stuff, did some really stupid things to try to put a band together that hurt my wife, that hurt my family. Because I kept putting her at the bottom of the list. It all goes together. If I could draw on the screen, I'd have a Venn diagram of work, ambition, and life. And you are the center of that. And it all meshes. I'm here today because my wife helped break me. That was never her intention. That was the path I needed to take. I'm able to communicate without fear, without any weakness, without any shame, without any embarrassment. The things that I've been through, the lowest moments in my life, the horribleness that I've done and that I've had done, the darkness I've been through, so that you can see, look at me now. I'm strong. I'm healthy. I learned from those lessons. I still have my first wife. I've got 4 kids who do really, really well at what they do. It changed. I wasn't a parent at the time, but it definitely changed my parenting. Because at the time, the way I treated my wife, the way I treated my EMTs, the way I treated my trainees, was I talked down to them, and I was the right and you were wrong. And do as I do, not as I say kind of deal. That's a horrible way to live your life. That explosion under the table, that breaking, changed that. Because when it comes down to it, we're talking about being alone. We're talking about, and thanks to Tom for sending me. I tried to get somebody to fill in, and the universe said no. Somebody to ride with me, a co-host. I'd love to take your questions, ask a paramedic anything, but we're at the end of the show right now. But definitely, we're going to set that up throughout the week. But I needed to tell the story about being alone, because when it comes down to it, in that moment, that textbook moment when I was with that kid in the back of the truck, and the firefighters AD had told it to trigger twice, and nurse was on the scene, never did find out why he died. Everything is going, even TV textbook. I mean, beyond real life textbook, it was going TV perfect. Everything was perfect. Got the tube instantly, got the line instantly, got we were doing everything we needed to do. CPR was flowing. Everything was going by the book. And even in a moment where time slowed, my perception of time sped up, whatever you want to say. But that moment where I look at and everybody's looking at me and they see strength, but behind the strength, behind that fake wall of strength, I had nothing. And I was alone in a truck full of at least 2 firefighters, my EMT, and a driver, and myself. I was alone because I was here. You will end up there. I hope that through my story today about stress and communication, about talking, and I'll fill out a few more points in case I haven't been blatant enough about talking and what fixed things. But I hope that's how you understand, how you realize you're not. You change that perception of aloneness that you've made, that you've caused, that you built that room to be alone in and locked yourself in your head. I did talk about that call with a full-on counselor at one point, but I went to marriage counseling and learned to deal with my baggage. That's what our marriage counseling was. We did it. I went together for a little bit, and then they separated us off into personal counselors. And I got one that I really clicked with. And every time I'd go to fuss about my wife and fight we had, he would listen. He would let me, and he would start asking really wise questions about, do you feel like you're doing this and blah, blah, blah. But he taught me to deal with my own stuff, and that's where it starts. The stress we carry that. Stress isn't put on you. You carry it, which means you can let it go. I talked to a whole lot of people after that incident under the table. And for a while, I chased the church route, the religious route, and got to, I cannot tell you how many preachers looked at me with fear in their eyes when I was asking them really hard life questions. Can't help you, man. Sorry. You're a man of God. You're running a church. You can't listen to my story. Nope, my story was too intense. I was too intense. I had too much going on. They couldn't handle it. Fear, man. They had fear. So I abandoned that route at the time. And I talked to counselors. But I specifically talked to my wife about everything, about every call, about what I was feeling. Not every time, obviously. I'm still not perfect. This isn't television where all of a sudden something happens and now you're a new person. No, the old person got killed. The old person got exploded. But it took years to build the new person that I am. And you can say, and you'd be right, I was always in there. You're right. I had to have a lot of crap that I put on myself blown off. Still made mistakes. Ultimately left the field after 10 years. But in my second year of marriage, that means I was in my third or fourth year of being in EMS. So I did another 6 years of EMS, having 2 kids, changing a bunch of jobs, having other stresses and other things go on, making other bad decisions. But the right decision I always made was I will do my best to communicate. Now, sometimes it comes out wrong. Sometimes it comes out me just blabbing a story about somebody, because that's how I work through things. I need to talk through things, but I have to find the right people to talk to avoid causing more problems with my words and my mouth. That's the key to what I learned. Be honest, be real. Never be afraid to show who you are. Never be afraid to say, I'm scared. I feel weak. I feel worthless. I feel like I did nothing there. Now, if you say it in the middle of a call to a patient, that's probably the bad timing on that. I'm talking about later after the call. I'm talking about in safe, appropriate times. And now TV is kind of catching up with this. This is, holy crap, this is 14, 13 years ago this happened. And now, just now on TV, I'm seeing things where people who are in the military or people playing police officers and the rookies talking about being scared. They say, good, because I wouldn't go into battle with you otherwise. Fear gets us through. If you're not scared, something's wrong. They weren't teaching that in EMS when I went through. They weren't teaching that on TV. They weren't teaching that anywhere. But that's the truth of the matter is we all get scared. We all feel worthless at times. We all feel weak. We all feel like we dropped the ball. You're never alone, even when you are alone. You can have Jesus and that works for you. That's fine. What worked for me is talking to people and getting their view of me, saying, no, you're strong here. No. You didn't screw that up like you thought you did. Your thought process is incorrect because you only have your voice, your input. Let me give you other insights and other input. Oh, so I did good. Oh, okay, I did fine. All right. That is the show for today. I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank you for being a part of this. Thank you, whoever's running the Georgia Institute of EMS, which should be Tom, hopefully, or Barb, or anybody who has that login. Thanks for putting in some stuff. And I would argue there's a comment here that says we are only in control of ourselves. You're really not. You're really not. But once you can understand, there's no such thing as control. Control is this. I hold on. And okay, so maybe you have a little bit of control. Maybe you hold that dollar as tight as you can. But until you actually go, I flow, I influence, I learn, I grow, and I move, then you can take more good stuff in life, more responsibility, more money. This is control. Control will get you nowhere. It might even punch somebody in the face. But control is you can only fit so much here. But this, I can fill the world. I'm Charles McFall, as you see on the title here. I'm with EMS Underground. Tom will probably be back next week, and I say probably because we'll see. He's having some health stuff going on. I'll let him talk about whatever's going on. But they are putting out that they want people to pray for him, and I believe he's recovering pretty well right now. And again, he can talk about it, but he might not be fully up to his being on the show next week. We'll see what happens. But I'll tell you another story if I have to be on and on. But Tom will be back soon. Email us, emsunderground@georgiaemt.com. I hope to actually teach stories, I use stories and everything, but teach a class as an adjunct. I am not a licensed paramedic. I will not be teaching you how to do CPR. I don't have that ability right now legally. I have the mental ability, but not the legal ability to teach you. But I told him I want to teach a class about putting a human face on things. Ask your questions. Let me tell short stories about what you're going to face and how you deal with it as a human being. Teach communication, teach leadership. That's what I would like to teach. And hopefully we're going to be working on those classes soon. GeorgiaEMT.com is the website. The website, the Facebook page rather, is Georgia Institute of EMS. Georgia is spelled out. Institute is spelled out of EMS. That is the Facebook page. We do these shows live every Thursday afternoon, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. Ish. I tried to I was early and then something didn't connect right with the stream and it showed that it was kind of streaming, but then it wasn't. I had to start over. So I was a little late today. And that happens with Tom and I too when we do live. Ask a Paramedic Anything is the heart of this show. We're going to give you the human answers. And if you have textbook questions, Tom can help with that. I can help some with that for sure. If you have specific things, I'm just not getting this thing. I'm in some other body school. That's fine. It doesn't matter what school you're in. I'm learning a class right now, and I just don't grasp this concept. Ask us that. Ask us that. I lisp a little bit sometimes. But ask us that, and we'll be more than happy to give you whatever answers we can. Just because you don't go to this school doesn't mean we can't help you. We can always help you. That's what this show is all about. It's underground. It's the stuff that nobody teaches you. That's what we're going to give you here. Find out more about me at charlesmcfall.com. And remember my warning at the beginning of the show. Here, we take a very specific path and a very specific way of telling stories. So you get no foul language. There's a lot of certain subjects we don't broach 100% hard on, blatant in your face. We'll do it with kid gloves. But if you go to charlesmcfall.com, there are some other shows I do like that. Pokemon Go, if you're interested in that. I do a comic book show. But the one that's called Rock Out of Podcasting is rated R. It is no holds barred. I will tell you in plain English with some 4-letter words laced in of what's going on. And it's still a fun ride. It's still a good thing to do, I think. But that's what you'll find there. So check us out there. Again, EMS Underground at GeorgiaEMT.com. I really want your emails. Ask a paramedic anything. We'll see you next week. And post your questions on this video. And we'll get to them next week. We'll hope to see you then.